Yeah? I'm seeing thumbs ups, I'm seeing video guy, maybe no. Yeah? Okay. Well then, I'm gonna start my timer. We'll see if I actually keep to time. Hi! Thanks for your patience while we triumph over technology. My name is Kristi Guzman. I've been an admin for about 10 years. And like many of you, love my classic whoopee that I've been living with and working with in the setup menu since I started as an accidental admin. I suggested that our case process was kind of stupid, and it was like, oh, hey, now you're an admin. So, and like 2 record types, like, it was great. So, for those of you who are not familiar with Carmen Sandiego, I guess maybe that's much more of an American show I watched when I was a kid. A Gumshoe is a detective, right? So the goal for this session is really to get kind of a high-level overview for those of you who maybe have dipped your toe in a little bit scared of lightning, maybe haven't really dug in and done some trails or played with it too much. I do not certainly profess to be a lightning guru by any stretch. I am still getting in myself, but I wanted to share kind of what I started learning as I went. So I think one of the key things to remember with anything Salesforce really, but with lightning, right, is that you first see it and it's amazing, right? And it's the best thing ever, especially if you're talking to people at Salesforce, right? Because this is the way things are going, right? And we've got all this new, cool, fun stuff, and it's gonna be so great, yay. I think in reality, it really is pretty great, right? As a non-coding admin, there's a lot more flexibility I have. I don't know how many of you have had users be like, can't you just move this over there? And it's like, no, I can't do that. I would, then you get into visual force pages, then you get into kind of that admin developer phase, which maybe you want to get into, but maybe not, right? So Lightning really has done a great job of kind of opening up some of that flexibility, and we'll take a look at some of that in a minute. But in the end, I think the most important thing to remember is that it's not going away, right? Like, this is the wave to the future. And we tease, my hand's gonna start getting hot, I'm gonna take that guy off. We tease about how our users don't like change, right? Like that kind of who moved my cheese mentality. But admins don't either, right? I am just as much of a victim of, I know how to get there in the quick find and the setup, like I can over here. And now I have to force myself really to dig in and stop and find and not just switch back. Because again, it's not just our users that switch to Classic and then stay there, it's us too, right? So let's take a look at some of the ideas behind Lightning, right? The new, shiny, great stuff, but also it's not all different, right? You can leverage a lot of the things that you've been doing for the past X number of years, right? So, or days, or however long you've been in. So one key thing to note, there are a lot of different types of Lightning pages. Fun, sexy home pages is great, but we're not gonna talk about those today. Similar to your web tab concept, you can make app pages. We're not gonna dig in that today. So today we're just looking at record pages. So I look at a contact and kind of what my options are. I look at an account and what my options are. Communities is another whole ball of wax we won't get into today. Maybe my next session will be that, because I'm finding all kinds of fun things about communities as well. But so we're gonna look at record pages. So again, we've got our safe place. We're comfortable with, we've got our clickable links at the top. We've got our chatter feed up top. We've got our row of buttons, and then details and our related lists at the bottom, right? That's that structure that we've kind of been locked into from the standard out-of-the-box piece. And we're gonna jump to our new Lightning record, right? So we've got a lot of flexibility in terms of where we wanna put things, et cetera, and some new components that we'll take a look at. So I think the first thing for me that was kind of like a mind game is we've been thinking of layouts as just the fields and related lists on that page, right? Or, within chatter, changing your actions around. But now your layouts have layouts, right? So in my mind, this is like layout inception. So before you even start talking about where you want to put things, you've got to choose the design of your page. And I think this is just one of those, you've, again, been used to the way things are going, this may involve asking some people what they'd want to see, or playing with a few different, some A and B testing, right, of what options you might have. But once you choose your first layout, then you get to start playing with components. So think of your components like Legos, right? You may buy the Death Star Lego set, but then you can build a pony if you want, right? You can build kind of whatever you'd like. So, and these are even probably a little bit outdated with Spring. So you've got a lot of standard components that Salesforce has built. And one of the cool things about components for developers or for admins who have developer friends is, or want to challenge themselves and build components, is that they're reusable. Right? So I think Path is a really interesting example of that. They started building Sales Path, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. But then that same concept is applicable to other objects. So why not just make one component that I can use in multiple places on multiple objects and give me the ability to define some things about that component that then I can reuse. And I, as the admin, look real great, and I didn't have to design this whole custom piece because I need this one thing over here. So of course you've got your standards that Salesforce is providing for you. You've also got custom and managed components. So there's a whole component exchange, just like the app exchange, right? So there may be partners that you already work with that have developed components, like DocuSign, right? So some more slowly than others, but partners are moving toward that idea of those Lightning components for their products. So we'll take a little bit look at that as well. And of course, including Salesforce products like Quip and Pardot, and all those are gonna have Lightning components as well. So you kind of get to build. Again, you have a little more flexibility than you may have in the past. So I mentioned Path. This is probably one of my favorite components because how many of you have built this as an image formula in the past? Just me. Yeah, one in the back, love it. So the idea of the visual of moving through, whether it's lead status, case status, or of course your opportunity stage, right? So you've got that progression. Some people might read all the text and that might be how they learn, but for the visual learners, having that concept move forward, as well as then being able to add guided selling to that. So obviously on larger sales teams or even small sales teams, right, you can't be there all the time, especially with new people coming on board as well. So you can kind of add some containers to say, okay, if you are in the negotiation stage, these are the key questions to ask. These are the key fields that you might need to complete to move our process forward, right? So out of the box now, instead of having to create all those images and make an if statement to show the different images, this is a true path. And again, this was taken to be a container, not just for sales path on opportunities, but for other objects. So any field that you have that's a pick list, probably already as part of your process, you can define as what controls the path, right? And then I can just drag that on to my page. Don't have enough time today to really jump in and start dragging stuff around, but pretty straightforward. Hopefully people have played a little bit with the Lightning page builder. So again, leveraging something I already have, right? A field that kind of controls the path of a record, but now it's a part of this component. Another great component, I think, that gives you a lot of flexibility is being able to embed a flow as a component, either in your utility bar down at the bottom that people can access all the time, or on a specific record. So I think flow is a really interesting tool that we haven't really gotten into using as much because it was harder to launch, or I hadn't at least, with screens, right? I've usually tried to use flows for things Process Builder couldn't do. But now kind of being able to create a small form and put it where I need to without having to get too complex or write something custom, right? I can build in a flow screen and now I can use that component to put it wherever I need to. So hopefully as you start just getting an impression of Lightning, again, I think just having in your mind, even if you're not ready to move, having in mind these kinds of opportunities so that when your VP of sales comes and is like, I wish I could do X, Y, and Z, or like creating a new record is so difficult. I wish I just had 4 fields I could do it with. Then you get to be the rock star that's like, I heard I could do that. Let me go figure that out and come back and present that option. So using flow, again, maybe not something you've done a whole bunch, or maybe you're the best Flowdetics ever, but definitely a new kind of way to leverage those flows without having to embed under a button or a custom link or something like that. And lastly, again, partners are going to come up with new components. And that may be something, I mentioned DocuSign earlier, right? Like that may be taking a DocuSign page you had and moving it into a component, or it might be a whole new way to use that product. So for example, Map Anything, who you can talk to downstairs, has a tool that allows you to map all your records, and you're kind of in that tab, but their component is contextual. So I can see if I'm planning a trip, right? I can see this account and I can see other accounts around it just in that component. And then I can dig further into the full product if I need to. So not just taking what they had in Classic and moving to Lightning, but really leveraging the new power of Lightning. So even if you do have existing tools or partners that you work with, it could be interesting to see what new things they're doing. And again, it's obviously advantageous to them, right? Because then it pulls you into their full product as well. So some custom components may be from partners like that. Some custom components may be meeting unique use case needs that you have, either something you develop or something from the component exchange. Yeah, sounds good. We're all super excited. But it's not all new, right? So I think this is a really important consideration when you're thinking about Lightning. If you start thinking about, oh my gosh, I could do this, and I could do this, and I could do this, then yes, it seems like very daunting. And in some ways, it is kind of a re-implementation, right? Because you've got your sales team, hopefully, finally happy with their opportunity page, and they're actually doing what they're supposed to do, and you don't want to move the cheese, right? But it is possible, if you want, to just move that page layout into Lightning so they kind of get some of a feel for the new features without throwing all the new shiny stuff at them as well. So we had a great speaker at our user group kind of talking about they had all these lines of code and all these custom processes, but they were able to move their sales team because they kept a very narrow focus to say, we're not building anything new. We're moving you to the new experience, which is going to give you better navigation, but we're not going to start throwing new stuff at you and moving everything around. They took all of that feedback for future phases. But the first phase was really, we're moving you to the Lightning experience. This is the way we're headed forward. Making sure they didn't break anything, but they were able to move. And this is a relatively large company. So I think in looking at kind of the rest of the presentation, we're kind of looking at what you've already built and how you can leverage that in Lightning. So maybe it isn't all the new shiny stuff. If you have the ability and all of the products you use are in Lightning, great. If you have a smaller team that's open to that kind of change, great. Put all the new sexy fun stuff in there. But don't let all of the coulds prevent you from moving forward with Lightning, potentially, or at least kind of think about the trade-offs there. So we talked about your Legos, right? One of your Legos is the details component. Now that's, to me, what I used to think of as a page layout. So not the related lists, but all of your fields. So each release, we've kind of gotten closer. My hope, if I ran the roadmap, would be that I could actually make like a little layout with different size fields, maybe take all the sections of my page and make those tabs in different components. But you can't do that yet. I figured that part out, which sort of made me sad, but we'll get there, right? Because they can't do all the things all at once. So I've got all my fields that I can put in a details component that I could put under a tab in the tabs component if I wanted to. I do still have my related lists as well. So not only do I have related lists, plural, I have single related list, singular. So now if somebody's like, I just want the campaigns related list to be over here, isn't that so easy? Now it is, right? So now I can define that one related list is over here in its own place. Maybe I control that some related lists are under one tab and some under another tab, right? So you've got some options. And you do now have a component that is the little hyperlinks. If people loved clicking those to get where they needed to go. They came back. So they're listening and they hear all the things that you might miss by moving over. The highlights panel up at the top is your compact layout. So if you hadn't really worked with mobile as much, you may not have messed with the compact layout. There is a default one, so there's gonna be, if you just turn on Lightning and take a look, there's gonna be something up there. But this is kind of a new way to leverage that layout, right? So previously your page layout included that if you were on mobile, but now I've got a different layout. So here's my details component. I've got one related list over there. I've got my new custom path component, and then up top is your highlights panel. And when you go in to edit these things in Lightning, if you do have to edit it within your classic highlights panel or your classic page layout, it will direct you there. So you don't have to know all of these things, right? It will take you to a place, and keep in mind, if you're making changes to the page layout, it's gonna impact your classic experience as well as the details component or related list components of your Lightning page layout if you have people on both. Actions are something that I hadn't really dug into as much, and I'm trying to be better about in terms of you leveraging global actions as well as object-specific chatter actions. So you can see they kind of end up in a few different places. So this is one of the biggest, I think, kind of who move my cheese concepts. You've got your global actions, which are always gonna live up top. They're not related to other records. You define that menu and it's shared all across all of your objects. Then you have your object-specific actions, which are gonna be in that row of buttons. It's a little shorter than it used to be, right? And then you've also got your productivity actions, which are in the actual activity component that you can choose to add to your layout. So honestly, this may take a few iterations to get used to, right? Maybe I always name something, like this is like when I go to create a productivity action, like name it productivity action and see where it shows up, right? So don't expect to just know all this, right? I got some help from Jillian Bruce to figure all this part out. So things may not be where you expect, but then you can help your users. Maybe it makes more sense just because it's comfortable where it used to be. Maybe it makes more sense. Somebody's thinking where it is now. And then lastly, we're gonna take a look at activation. So I made this beautiful page layout. Maybe my page layout is a details component, a chatter component at the top, hyperlinks, and a related list, right? Sound familiar, right? Maybe that helps ease the transition. I chose a one-column layout, and I put all those components in. Or maybe I chose a two-column, and I put chatter over here so the other things move up the page, but it's still pretty familiar. Or maybe I went crazy and did all kinds of new fun, sexy stuff, and everyone's gonna love it. And I've done some testing, and I know that people are gonna love it. You do have a lot of granularity with how you wanna choose to let people see those layouts. So if you've ever done layouts by record type, same kind of concept, except now you get to, within each app, if you want to, within each record type, or within each profile. So same kind of concept for home pages. It seems a little easier to understand that way of, I'm in marketing, so I want to see a campaigns dashboard component when I come in, versus I'm in sales, I want to see opportunities and kind of what surfaces within those apps. So you can set an org default and have everyone see the same thing, or you can start getting more and more specific by app or by type of person and really control that experience they have. But maybe in the beginning, it's easiest just to start with kind of keeping everybody in the same flavor and then making changes as you start getting feedback. So again, just real high level look at kind of dipping maybe your whole foot instead of just your toe into Lightning to see what options you have with what you've already built and what might be new, as well as just trying to think about why not Lightning, right? I think it's easy with change to be like, when are they gonna make me move, right? Like I'm gonna wait until they don't have this one thing that I want, right? I think the first time I heard about Lightning, right, it's easy to start a list of 15 things that it doesn't do, so I'm not moving and I'm staying where I wanted to be, right? And maybe those 15 are still there, but hopefully there's like 4 that are still left, right? So is your list empty? No. Should you wait till your list is empty? Why would I want to build, what if I wanted guided selling. Why do I want to build something custom, create that technical debt for myself, as opposed to considering at least the trade-offs of those 4 things, right? So maybe there's more carrot that might help ease the transition, help with adoption. Maybe, again, asking your users, right? They probably are logging in, seeing all the trailheads, seeing all the details. Obviously, Salesforce is pushing Lightning, right? So I would just encourage you, hopefully, to kind of think about why not Lightning? Why am I not moving? Is there ways I can do those things differently? And then at least start a plan and a process to moving it, as opposed to that kind of head in the sand avoidance method. That's much easier because that's what you've been doing for years, right? That's your safe place. So, and me too. So that, we have like 3 minutes for questions. If anybody has anything, didn't understand any weird words I used because I'm American, yeah.
What would you say is the biggest gotcha? What thing, number one thing that you advise us to look out for in new page layouts?
I think really it's just a matter of making sure it works the way you think it works, right? And testing it out. Which again, you've got sandboxes or you've got dev orgs to try and do those things. Like I said, when I first heard details component, I thought I could build a layout within Lightning, right? So honestly, this entire presentation is because I needed to start doing this evaluation for myself, and these are the kind of the things that I found and wanted to share. So I think, again, it's not gonna work maybe how you think it might work. For example, I mentioned communities are a little bit different. The related list singular component is not in a community. So I was in a meeting and I'm like, oh yeah, you can do that, yay, right? Not so much. So just making sure that it works the way you think it works and playing with it to get comfortable with that. Oh, you could get, the question was what's a gotcha or a thing to kind of keep in mind with Lightning pages? Thank you, good reminder. Yes.
Do you know if there's any plans from Salesforce side to extend the amount of columns and kind of headers and columns that you can have, and more customization into how many columns you can have on Lightning app page?
I don't know. Our last question is going to be about if there's any plans from the Salesforce side to kind of change some of those layout options to give you more columns and more flexibility. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear a use case, and again, maybe kind of the edge case kind of deal, right? Because with your 3 columns, you're already going to get decently narrow unless you've got, this TV-sized monitor. So, but yeah, I'm sure. ID exchange, yay.
We moved a lot of JavaScript buttons over to Lightning components, and if you have them as separate buttons, you can only go down vertically, not horizontally.
Interesting.
So if you have more than 3 columns, if you have more buttons than the 3 columns, then they have to be custom made.
Interesting. I do not know. I know that Eric Jacobson will be at Southeast Dreamin'. Yeah, good, fun plug. And so I would encourage you, like I said, from the idea exchange or trying to find, I do not know. And I'm okay with saying that. Anybody else? Nope, because Simon gave me the anger ball. So thank you very much. Let me know. I think I'll be here all week. No, I will, actually. But you can also hear me on the 2-Wit podcast. Yep. There you go. Thank you.